So while I've been talking about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for 20 years, it's only been a little over a decade that I've been doing it online on this very podcast. But understand that I've been talking about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for that long. And every single time I mention Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I've always called it Metroid Prime 4. This is years before we would know it as Beyond. This is years before Bandai Namco started developing what would be the canceled Metroid Prime 4. I've always called it Metroid Prime 4, like many of you, because that was always the easiest way to explain what kind of Metroid game it is that I'm referring to. But understand this, I played Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 multiple times. I understand who Metroid Prime is, what Metroid Prime became, and then after Samus saw Metroid Prime, aka Dark Samus, slaughter all those bounty hunters in Prime 3, she was like, I'm done. I actually got contact with the Galactic Federation. We going to the planet of Phase. We going to the pirate homeworld. We gonna wreck everything. And we're gonna handle this problem once and for all. And that's what Samus did. Now there's nothing to say that when Prime 3 ended and Silex chased off, behind Samus, there's nothing to say that Silex didn't take some remains of Phazon or anything like that. Because, well, clearly Silex was around, right? And now we're going to see what that was all about in Prime 4. But from my understanding, everything Phazon was done with. There is no more Phazon. There is no more Metroid Prime because Dark Samus was destroyed and Dark Samus was Metroid Prime. All right, so that's done with. So in my mind, I didn't ever understand why you would start, let's just say, a new trilogy and bring the baggage of the Prime name. I always thought it would be Metroid something. For example, Metroid Beyond, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because I never wanted Metroid after year 10, after year 15. Now we're going to be, closer to 20 by the time the game comes out from when the last entry in the Prime series came out. 2007. Like, you're bringing that baggage back for what? The game sold in a downward trajectory. You're trying to make this one go in an upward trajectory. Coming in 20 years later and be like, hey, look, brand new game to a series that many of you never played. And if you want to play, you don't even have access to play these games. Well, look, we ported the first one, and maybe by the time I upload this, they have already announced that they're dropping the second and the third, and I'll be happy about that. And I wish that they did before 4 because, well, you're bringing all that baggage with the name. You put a 4 there. You put the Prime there, and you put a 4 there. You could have literally left those two things out. Us hardcore Metroid fans would have saw the gameplay and knew FPA. That's what I always thought they were going to do, But then I always knew that when it comes to corporations, they're going to say, well, brand awareness. And it's the same reason why I was calling the Metroid Prime 4 all those years. Brand awareness. It was easier than just saying FPA, because then sometimes I had to explain what a FPA is. It's a first-person adventure game, not a first-person shooter. And, yeah, so it was just easier to say, oh, yeah, Prime 4. But I actually never thought it'd be called Prime 4. In the same way, I don't expect the next Mario game to be Odyssey 2. I never expected Galaxy 2. That was surprising. Like, Nintendo wasn't really too much with the numbers. Like, even Mario, what was Mario 2 for us, the game was completely different from what the actual, name implied. But then Mario 3 would come out. But then they start going World, and then Yoshi's Island, and then, and it's like, wait, Yoshi's Island, the mainline entry? Like, yeah, it's just like Metroid. When you play it, it says the actual full name there. But anyway, Nintendo isn't the one to really stick to names like that. They're quick to change things up. So I expected that when they reintroduced the world to FPA Metroid games. But I always knew that there was likely going to be the scenario that they're like, you know what? It's easy if we just go with the Prime name. Everybody knows what it is. They've been calling it that for years. Just make that game. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? I understand. I'm not mad about it because I'm a Metroid Prime fan. But I think for new players, it might be baggage. And understand, before the game came out, I didn't even want them to call it 4 because I didn't want them to have to put out 1, 2, and 3 before 4. Because I thought, listen, if 2 came out, right, after 1 did the numbers it did. And clearly, not, the numbers that 1 did was because a lot of people thought it was the GameCube's Halo, right? So once people was like, don't make me think, they didn't pick up 2. And then even less people picked up 3 on a way more popular console. I was just like, yeah, what's the point? I love what the IP is, but clearly you can change a lot about it now that you finished the trilogy. You could go with a whole new thing. So Metroid, like literally Metroid Beyond would have worked perfectly fine. And people would understand what it is. Oh, we got Metroid Dread. That's a 2D one. This is the 3D one. And then all the hardcore fans would have been like, yeah, it's a FPA Metroid, like Prime games. It's basically like a successor to those. And it would have hit the same way. Exactly the same. Because right now, us as fans of Prime 4, we're like, yeah, we know that this is definitely a continuation to 3, because Silex was there. Obviously, it's a continuation to what happened in Federation Force, because he got his Metroids that he stole. So it's all in line. But again, Metroid Prime isn't anywhere to be found. There's not even a single hint of Metroid Prime. And like I said, Silex could have stolen some, not even stolen, just taken some remains at the end of Prime 3 Corruption. Or we're going to jump through time and justify, maybe that's what Silex is doing. He's like, yo, I got to get that artifact that you see in the background of the Prime 4 logo. I'm going to get that. I'm going to jump through time in order to get the weapon that came the closest to defeating the Galactic Federation, since that's Silex's primary objective that we know of this character. I think that can make sense too. You know, there's multiple ways, obviously, to justify the Prime name. You could just say, "Oh, they just restarted the program," and I'm like, I mean, yeah, that too. That's that's the simplest way to do it too. You don't got to jump through time hoops, nothing. But still, I just felt like after the conclusion of it all, I'm gonna be honest. Like I spent those 20 years always revisiting these games. Clearly, most of y'all who are Prime fans just played through Prime 1 again, remastered. You know, some of y'all who got the games and was like, listen, I ain't gonna wait for 2 and 3. Y'all played that and then said, I'm gonna go 2 and I'm gonna go 3, and probably played the whole trilogy recently again. So it's like going back to Phase On and all of that, I don't know if I want to. I was ready for something new. And I'm always ready for something new with my Nintendo games. That's the thing. They always gonna do something new. That's why when I talk about, the next 3D, Mario game. Look, I almost said Donkey Kong. I always say I want it to be like a game with Donkey Kong and Mario. Put those universes together the way they belong, and not just in the march of the mini game. And that's me asking for Odyssey style gameplay, because Mario was rolling in that like Donkey Kong, but also with new things. I'm expecting, what's that wild Cappy moment in the next 3D Mario game. I'm not expecting another Zelda game that takes place in the land of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It can be open air, but I don't expect it to be there. I always expect new things. Fire Emblem fans expect new things. Right now, a lot of Monolith fans are looking forward to what's the next thing that they're going to do that supposedly isn't going to be in the Xenoblade universe. There's a lot going on with all these different Nintendo IPs. We don't even know what the next Kirby game is going to be like after Forgotten Land. Will it be like that? Will it be 2D? Will it be something different? So with Metroid, it like just saying, yeah, don't keep that name, start fresh, whole new marketing campaign. Maybe, reintroduce Samus Aran to players. And while this series could take place in between entries, it didn't really have to. You could have just made this, Metroid 6. And then have the next game developed by Sakamoto and Mercury Steam be Metroid 7. And just keep the timeline going, moving already. And not keep the Prime games trapped, in between two old games where we know, where the story came from and we know where the story's going at all times while we're playing the Prime series. There's never any threat of anything because we know it all continues with multiple games after. So it's a lot there when it comes to the name and things like that. It's just not as simple as, just wanting a new name for the sake of wanting a new name. I'm looking at it through the eyes of a fan who's been a fan for all these years. I get it. I respect it. I'm happy it exists, obviously. I'm just being clear that before the game release, I always said this. So now that the game has been announced for a long time, and I've been calling it Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for a long time, I had to remind myself. When I was talking about reintroducing Samus, I had to remind myself, like, they're coming in 20 years with the baggage of 4, Prime 4. Why would you do that? Like, what's the point? Especially if you're gonna grow this IP. Like, I would find it ridiculous if Nintendo was like, oh, here comes F-Zero, and they numbered it. Like, huh? Or GX2. Like, why? Like, you don't need, like, just give me the next GX like F-Zero. I'm gonna know what it is. Every F-Zero fan gonna know what it is, And call it a day. Like, you don't gotta, oh yeah, you don't gotta do nothing like that. And I know these are way different comparisons, and I know that this is a story that's a continuation from 3. Like I said, I understand that. But even with it being a continuation of 3, you could have just renamed this trilogy. But again, let's see them justify the Prime name. That's really what I want to see now, because the name of the game is Metroid Prime. What's Prime about it? Is Silex gonna take learnings from the Prime project and apply it to themselves, and then now we got to deal with this Silex Prime? Because if that's the case, that's awesome. You know what I mean? But yeah, that name comes with a lot of baggage in multiple ways, and I'm just breaking down multiple ways that it was just unnecessary baggage, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. At the end of the day, I'm just happy we getting Metroid Prime 4. I'm happy that we got a name for it Beyond. But how crazy would it be if by the time the game actually hit store shelves, Retro Studios like, oh yeah, the game took on this whole complete form, different form. So we're not gonna go with the Prime name. We're gonna call it this, and people probably be like, oh, what the hell, and act like it's not the same game. It is. I promise you, it is. The next open air Zelda game, even though it may not have the same art style, if they say, oh no, it's a sequel to Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild style Zelda, then it'll still be that. It'll just look different, feel different, because it'll have new things in it, but it'll still be at the core what you're looking for in that experience from that IP, that specific one. And I think, yeah, Metroid, look, at the end of the day, I think things will be fine. That's what I'm gonna say. I think things will be fine. But it's crazy when, Prime 3 did the numbers that it did on such a popular piece of hardware, and then Prime 1 just did the numbers that it did at such a cheap price. Looked incredible. I mean, compared to Donkey Kong Country Remastered, where they literally took details away that were on the Wii at 480p, and they're like, yeah, this is good enough. Like, nah, I want my fur. The whole point of that game was the fur. And then in Tropical Freeze, it got even better. And they're like, nah, here's this flat texture. You good? It's like, nah, I'm not touching that at all. But yeah, they did all that, and it didn't even sell remaster like that. It didn't sell to its potential, especially not its potential user base. So now it's like, yeah, new Metroid coming out with a, super huge install base again, like Remastered just did. But then coming out on hardware that's starting at 0, potentially also, in the next gen Nintendo hardware. Then it's like, yeah, how's that game going to do? Who really knows, man? Who really knows? At the end of the day, it's up to Nintendo. Everything that I talk about, from, gameplay modes to reintroducing Samus properly to, is the name too much baggage in 2024? Like, yo, is this too much baggage? Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? People might be like, yo, where's the rest? Nintendo better deliver that soon. You know what I mean? So they better deliver 2 and 3, because it's going to be wild to me to just have Prime 4 on store shelves and it'd be no way for gamers today to simply access 2 and 3. Like, that'd just be crazy. Unless it's something where it's like, oh yeah, next gen Nintendo hardware, Switch Online, has GameCube and Wii, so yeah, you could play those games right there, But it wouldn't be before. So then people would have to be playing catch up while the game is already out potentially. Which honestly wouldn't bother me, because I don't think I made my point clear earlier. I didn't want Prime 2 and 3 to come out before 4 for people to play, because the games did go in a downward trajectory as they hit, more popular hardware. I didn't want whatever caused gamers not to be interested in the IP to basically do that again to a new crop of players with those same games, even though while they worked for me, didn't work for a lot of players, right? I didn't want those games to be their reintroduction to Prime, to be honest. I wanted to FPA Metroid, to be clear. Like I wanted Prime 4, whatever that thing would be, which is now we know Prime 4 Beyond to be their first introduction to it. And that's why I thought not having the baggage of the Prime name, the 4 in the name would have went just a long way to get people, interested in a fresh way without them having something that they can look back to and say, oh, it's like that game. Oh, I didn't really like that game or something like that, But again, it's a new world from when, screw when Prime 1 came out. When 3 came out, 2007, that was a long ass time ago. You understand what I'm saying? So there's people who were just born who are adults now. And honestly, they ain't trying to hear nothing that I'm saying right now. They like, listen, I was there for Dread. I enjoyed Metroid Prime Remastered. I'm showing up for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond when it comes out. I don't care about none of this talk, So, yeah, there'll be players like that. And, of course, there'll be players who'll get caught up in the hype, of the game. Hopefully new hardware. That game being attached to it also causes hype for the game. There's a lot going into it. But also, Nintendo got to do their thing, first and foremost. Nintendo has to do their thing. It's going to be interesting how this all plays out. I'm here for the journey. And while it's quiet, I got to talk about things, you know what I'm saying? That I'm thinking about. I got to talk about things in order to just give us something to, talk about while we wait for the next trailer, for the next, bit of information from this IP that usually is, very much on the quiet side of things. But I wanted to get real loud when it comes to Prime 4 and its rollout. And the amount of videos they release, ads, all of that. I really want them to listen. If Metroid Prime 4 is going to be the last Metroid Prime game we get, or if there's going to be another 20-year gap between releases, yeah, I want them to go completely all out. More than it's justified due to the sales of the series. You made the game. You chose to make the game with the budget it has, with the time it was given. Now spend the money in actually justifying all that by promoting the game the way it deserves to be promoted. Pushing it to the forefront. If you got new hardware, I want this on the box. If you're going to bundle something, bundle that. And it's like, come on, that's not the game to bundle. That ain't Wii Sports. You're right. But why can't there be more than one bundle? If you're going to have a bundle with something creative like Nintendo Land or Wii Sports, why can't you have the core gamer bundle? Have the white Switch and have a black Switch. You know what I'm saying? And make the black one have Metroid bundled in. The white one could come bundled with 3D Mario Donkey Kong game. I don't care. Do something like that. One could have more memory than the other one. One could be more expensive than the other. I don't know. Whatever they want to do. But I think that they should definitely do something major that feels major. Like they did with, the OLED switch. Seeing that white OLED switch went perfect with Metroid Dread because Samus had white, the Emmys were white. They just tied together nicely with that. It was nice to see that and look at the sales. So clearly that's what Metroid needs. Metroid needs that push of more than just, hey, look, we made a great game. Let's see what it does. Like, nah, you got to make that great game and then promote it and put it in everybody's face. Like, why you ain't playing this game? It's the best. It's the best. It's the best. That's what they got to basically do. And I hope it's what they do when it comes to Metroid Prime 4. I'm excited for it. It don't matter what this thing was called. I was going to play it either way. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next one. Peace.